The moment a heart attack begins, a clock starts inside your chest. One small artery on the surface of the heart seals shut, and the patch of muscle it was feeding has only so long to live. Not hours of warning, minutes. And the strange part is where the dying starts, deep on the inner wall of the heart, then creeping outward.
To see why, rewind to the trigger. Picture one coronary artery, a fuel line no wider than a drinking straw, carrying oxygen to the heart muscle. Somewhere along its wall sits a plaque, a small pocket of cholesterol and dead cells, capped by a thin fibrous lid. Here's what surprises people. This plaque does not have to be large. It can be a minor bump the heart lived with for years. The danger is less about how narrow it made the pipe, and more about whether that thin cap stays sealed.
Then, the cap tears. Blood suddenly touches the material inside the plaque, raw collagen, fat, and a protein that acts like a chemical alarm for clotting. Platelets, the blood's tiny plugs, rush to the torn surface and stick. They pile onto each other, and threads of a fiber called fibrin stitch the pile into a mesh. In seconds to minutes, that growing clot fills the artery and seals it. Downstream, the oxygen simply stops arriving. Now, follow the muscle it fed. Zoom into a single heart cell. It has been contracting about once a second your whole life, burning oxygen without pause. Cut that supply, and within seconds to about a minute, the cell stops squeezing. It is not dead yet. It is simply run out of the fuel that powers each beat. Inside, a chain reaction begins. The cell's power molecule, ATP, drains away. The pumps that keep sodium and calcium in balance lose power and fail. Calcium floods in where it does not belong. For roughly the first 20 to 40 minutes, much of this muscle is still alive and could be saved. After that, the failing cells begin to rupture, and the damage turns permanent. And it spreads in a very particular way. Death begins in the innermost layer of the heart wall, the part squeezed hardest and fed last, then advances outward toward the outer surface, hour by hour, like a tide coming in. The longer the artery stays shut, the farther that front travels, and the more muscle is lost. This is what doctors mean when they say time is muscle. The clock is real, and it is the muscle itself dying in order. Which brings us to what this feels like from the outside, and why the movie version misleads people. On screen, a heart attack is a sudden clutch at the chest and a collapse. In real bodies, it is often quieter. Chest pressure is common, but the signal can also arrive as an ache in the jaw, the back, an arm, or the shoulder, as nausea, a cold sweat, or just breathlessness and a strange, heavy fatigue. Some attacks are barely noticed at all. Women, older adults, and people with diabetes are more likely to have these subtler versions, which is part of why they get missed. There is a second thing worth clearing up. A heart attack and cardiac arrest are not the same event, even though the words get swapped all the time. A heart attack is a plumbing problem, a blocked pipe starving muscle. Cardiac arrest is an electrical one. The heart's rhythm collapses into chaos, and it stops pumping altogether. One can trip the other. Those starving, electrically unstable cells can throw the rhythm into a useless quiver. But most heart attacks do not stop the heart on the spot. That is a complication, not the definition. So how do you stop the clock? You reopen the artery. In many cases, a doctor threads a thin tube, called a catheter, up to the blockage and inflates a tiny balloon, then leaves behind a small mesh scaffold called a stent to hold the vessel open. In others, clot-busting drugs dissolve the fibrin mesh from the inside. The instant blood floods back in, the wavefront freezes where it stands. Every muscle cell it had not yet reached gets to live.
That is why this is treated as a race. In the United States, a heart attack starts roughly every 40 seconds. And for each one, how much muscle survives depends on how fast the flow comes back. Reopening the artery cannot revive tissue that has already died, but it protects everything still hanging on.
So the next time you hear the phrase heart attack, you can picture what is actually happening. A sealed artery, a patch of starving muscle, and a wavefront of damage moving through the heart wall while a clock runs. It is a mechanism, traceable, and caught early enough, stoppable. This is an explanation of how the body works, not medical advice. A real heart attack is an emergency, and the most important thing anyone can do is get help fast. Call emergency services.